not some random person on X. It's not some YouTuber screaming. This is the Wall Street Journal, the WNBA, and Caitlin Clark's.
WNBA leadership has crossed all the lines and just set a new bar for institutional corruption. They've systematically allowed targeting and abuse of their biggest superstar, Caitlin Clark, a move that could destroy their entire organization.
It's a very interesting but touchy topic, man. That is Caitlin Clark's civil rights being broken.
And this came after Clark brought them millions in revenue, unprecedented viewership, and sold-out arenas, and saved their dying league. But what did they do in return? Nothing. Just sit back and let every other team use her as target practice, with the league's full blessing. And now, the situation has come so dire that the Wall Street Journal is calling for federal intervention because this abuse has crossed into civil rights violation territory. If the league won't act to protect its superstar from a hostile environment, the government should do so. Statement.
The Wall Street Journal in this article is calling, or at least saying out loud, that maybe Caitlin Clark's civil rights are actually being violated.
Finally, somebody big is stepping up to the plate to talk about this.
If this whole situation leaves you as angry and disgusted, just drop a "Justice for Cece" in the comments. And keep watching because we're about to expose how this betrayal reached federal investigation levels. The core issue.
Now, a lot of people have been campaigning to reach out to the Justice Department here in our country to possibly look into this, man.
The WNBA is not just failing Caitlin Clark. In fact, it is actively betraying every single basketball fan who has invested their money, heart, and energy into supporting this league.
Instead of protecting this transformational star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Miss Clark.
Just imagine an organization so tone-deaf that they let their biggest superstar get brutalized night after night while acting like nothing's wrong. That is an utter failure of WNBA. Like, you have got the generational talent WNBA has ever seen in the form of Caitlin Clark, a player who single-handedly drew millions of eyes to the league, and you just systematically target her while collecting massive profits from her popularity? This speaks volumes about their integrity, or the complete lack of it. The audacity, such a shame.
This could get very ugly and very public for the WNBA on a much bigger scale.
Just recently, Sophie too couldn't hold back, couldn't resist but to speak about it in a podcast. She exposed the coordinated targeting, locker room planning, and even called out the jealous players.
Like, I know the talks that Phoenix had in the locker room of like...
She said, "What are people doing? It's just too much. Too much. If I'm saying it's too much, then it's probably too much."
And like, now being on her team and like seeing it, I'm like, what are people doing? Like, actually it's just too much. Too much. Yeah. And like, it's just, I'm over. And if I'm saying it's too much, then it's probably...
It's a shocking sign of the league's failure when a player has no choice but to go on media and say this. Unfortunately, at this point, it's not even about basketball anymore. This is a question of basic civil rights.
I've been one saying that I definitely believe her civil rights has been broken. She has been simply assaulted damn near every time she's been on the court.
Fans buy tickets, jerseys, and league pass subscriptions because of their love for the players and their trust that the league will protect them. However, the WNBA's handling of Caitlin Clark is a calculated negligence. Just think. Their biggest star being treated like a human punching bag while the league leadership counted their money.
Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Miss Clark. That approach could turn into legal liability for the WNBA. Okay, well, get this.
And here is the part we all have been waiting for. Finally, someone took notice. And it was the Wall Street Journal of America. The Journal didn't mince words. Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Miss Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache. That approach could turn into legal liability for the WNBA. So this is loud and clear. All of it didn't happen by accident. The WNBA created a hostile environment deliberately. And now, they might face federal consequences. The damning evidence.
Players chose the lay of the loser in the heat of raw intensity, blazing talent, and unrelenting drama.
Let's pull back the curtain on how this all went down. A closer examination reveals a pattern of discrimination so obvious that major media outlets are calling it a civil right violation.
In pain after she caught that fingertip in the eye or right around.
Let's begin with the most damning evidence. The huge gap between how Caitlin Clark gets treated versus literally every other player in the league.
That no player in the WNBA since 2024 have took the amount of fouls, the assaults that Caitlin Clark has.
Caitlin Clark absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls last season. 17%. That's double the rate of any other player. Also, the Chicago Sky had their 4 out of 7 flagrant fouls against Clark in 2024.
June clash, Mabry turns up the heat with a defensive approach that's less about finesse and more about brute force. She hounds Clark relentlessly, leaning into her with physical contact that pushes the boundaries.
If a freaking 60%? So, you are telling me that more than half of the league's fouls are against a single player? The rookie who brought 600% merchandise sales increases just happens to be the most likely to get flagrantly fouled? That's not basketball, that's targeting.
Some players decided to test her with physicality that crossed the line, only to find themselves caught in a storm they couldn't control.
Marina Mabry blindsided her with a cheap shot. And then we have Kennedy Carter's shoulder check, Angel Reese's head contact, or Marina Mabry's aggressive bumps. Jay Sheldon literally tried to claw her eyes out. Dejani Carrington nearly blinded her with an eye poke. And what happened to any of these players? Nothing. Not one suspension, not a single meaningful consequence.
Yet she routinely faces intentional hits, excessive fouling, and uncalled abuse while referees look away.
That is pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic. The double standard exposed.
Calling certain fouls on certain players, but especially when it comes to Caitlin Clark, it's just almost like they want her to get hurt.
And let me expose the league's double standards. Let me tell you something that will shock you. Just this week, Chelsea Gray got immediately ejected for a shoulder check. So, it was one play, instant ejection, and literally no questions asked.
And what's crazy about it is that now she was ejected from the game.
Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark gets assaulted as well as bullied multiple times per game, and the officials turn a blind eye.
And Clark.
If it's Clark, the referees suddenly go blind. Sophie Cunningham, her own teammate, had to go on record saying the star player of the league is not being protected.
Indiana Fever in the Chicago Sky here from Wintrust Arena. The Fever really stretched out this one in the second half.
When your own teammates are publicly calling out the league's failure to protect you, that's not a basketball issue anymore. That's a workplace safety crisis. The civil rights angle and pattern of discrimination.
Yes, she got ejected for that. Now, is that a flagrant foul? Doing that off the ball?
The situation has gone way too serious than you think. We're not just dealing with bad officiating, we're dealing with a hostile work environment under federal civil rights law.
The league has fostered a hostile workplace for Caitlin Clark through excessive fouling, targeting, and hostile comments from other players and owners.
The Wall Street Journal laid out the legal framework perfectly. Under civil rights law, race-motivated patterns trigger scrutiny even without explicit discriminatory intent, which simply means that pattern of unequal treatment is enough to trigger federal investigation.
The league has fostered, and I would say encouraged, a hostile workplace for Caitlin Clark through the excessive fouling, the targeting, the hostile...
And if we look at the stats about Caitlin Clark, that is almost no foul rate, 0 suspensions for those who assault her, and no calls on obvious fouls by the referees, then it is exactly the kind of disparities that prompt federal probes and civil rights lawsuits. What happens next?
Evidence. There's so much evidence proving that she's targeted, proving that her civil rights has been broken. What's going to happen with the league?
The Wall Street Journal has quite aptly laid out an entire roadmap for federal action. Congress and the administration should demand answers of WNBA leaders, investigate officiating and internal league communications, hold hearings, and insist on real reform. Which means that we could be witnessing congressional hearings where Kathy Engelbert has to explain under oath why the face of their league gets such inhumane treatment.
Maybe WNBA leadership should at least have to go sit in front of some people and answer some very uncomfortable questions.
And this isn't any Twitter beef, it is the Justice Department, the federal law enforcement. And here is the part that scares the shit out of WNBA officials. If leaders remain inert, Congress should reconsider the WNBA's special privileges, including antitrust and broadcast considerations. You get it, right? If the WNBA doesn't clean up this mess, Congress could just take away their special legal protections that allow them to operate as a monopoly. That would be an extinction-level event for the league. The bottom line.
The type of beating that she has been taking night in, night out, part of the reason why she's not playing right now is because of this beating.
So, the thing is, the WNBA found a generational talent. And instead of protecting her, they abandoned her. Now they're facing potential federal intervention because their greed and negligence crossed the line into civil rights violations. The entire mess makes the WNBA make a choice, because after all, their entire existence is at stake now.
Been saying this, my goodness. Caitlin Clark could sue this league, guys.
Caitlin Clark could bankrupt this league if she decides to pursue federal civil rights claims. The Wall Street Journal just fired the first shot in what could become the WNBA's worst nightmare. What do you think should happen? What should Clark do? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because this story is just getting started.